Well, in today's gospel reading, which I just read for you, we heard 4 of Jesus's Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor, blessed are the hungry, blessed are the sorrowful, and blessed are the persecuted. Now, the word beatitude is not a word that Jesus would have known. Jesus didn't coin that word. That word was coined by the church. It's a Latin word. It comes from the word beatus, which means blessed or favored, highly favored. Now, the front cover of your bulletin today says surprising teaching, because this is very surprising. Jesus is speaking to poor people, hungry people, sorrowful people, and persecuted people, and he's saying to them, rejoice, be glad. You're highly favored. You're blessed. It doesn't seem to make sense. So today we're going to explore what Jesus was really saying in the Beatitudes. Now, most of you who grew up in the church, you're probably familiar with the 8 Beatitudes that Jesus spoke in his very famous Sermon on the Mount in Matthew's Gospel. You see that the version in Luke's Gospel is a little bit different. Luke only gives us 4 Beatitudes, and Jesus doesn't speak them from a mountain, but from the ground. And that's why this gospel is referred to as the Sermon on the Plain. And I really like that. I like that Jesus isn't speaking down to people. He's not above them. He's actually at their level. He's speaking to them as one of them. Now, even though Matthew and Luke's gospel have conflicting reports on the number of Beatitudes and where they were spoken, there are mountains in both gospel passages. If you notice today, it began with the sentence, Jesus came down from a mountain and he stood on level ground. Now, if you come to Douglas UCC on a regular basis, you know that whenever we have a story about mountains, I tell you that mountains are symbolic in the Bible. And what they symbolize is a place of higher consciousness. Before Jesus gives the Beatitudes, he's up on the mountaintop. He's praying. He's meditating. Maybe he's sitting in the lotus position. And from that place of higher consciousness, he receives these great and wise teachings, the Beatitudes. And he comes down the mountain to share them with the people. Now, the Beatitudes that Jesus gives, they were daring. And I know for us, they don't seem very daring today. They kind of seem nice, but they were very daring. Many of you know that in 2016, a group of 20 of us from our church went out to New Mexico, and we met with Richard Rohr, the famous Christian writer. And he told us that the Beatitudes, he believes, are Jesus' greatest wisdom teachings, but that they're also his most dangerous words. And he said to us, Jesus was not killed by evil people. Jesus was killed, he said, because he dared to challenge the conventional wisdom of his day. That's what he was doing in the Beatitudes. Now, 2 20th century prophets and truth tellers, Mahatma Gandhi and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., they also challenged the conventional wisdom of their day, and they too, like Jesus, were silenced. And not surprisingly, both Gandhi and Martin Luther King said that it was Jesus' Beatitudes that inspired their sacred activism. In fact, Martin Luther King said Jesus' Beatitudes were the motivating force behind the civil rights movement. So these Beatitudes, which maybe seem very tame to us, they're not. They're very radical and very revolutionary. They upset people. So much so that Jesus had to be silenced. So let's look at what he was really saying. He was basically telling the people of his day, Your beliefs are all wrong. That's what he was telling them. As we heard in our words of integration this morning, people in Jesus' day believed that if you were rich, if you had lots of money and a high status in society, well, that meant you were God's highly favored ones. You must be living life right because God's rewarding you. But if you're poor and you're sick, well, you or your ancestors must have sinned, and that's why God's punishing you. That's what they believed. Jesus comes along and says, hey, people, you got it all wrong. And the people are upset because this way of thinking, these beliefs, were passed on to them from their ancestors, were taught to them by their religious authorities and their scholars and kings. Jesus, with the Beatitudes, was taking that belief system and he was turning it upside down. He was saying, no, you have it all wrong. The poor, the sick, the hungry, the persecuted, they're God's favored ones. The kingdom belongs to them. And what he says, these are the dangerous words that got him in trouble. From now on, starting today, the last are going to be first, and the least of these are going to be most important. So you can see why people were upset. Now, did Jesus up on that mountaintop say, oh, wow, these words are really going to upset people, and maybe I shouldn't say them because I just want to be nice. I just want everybody to get along. So, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to upset people. No, he didn't do that. He had to speak that truth, and it upset people. If we truly say that we are followers of the way of Jesus, we have to do the same thing. We have to be people of the Beatitudes. That's why I called the homily the Beatitudes, because we are going to be the church. So we have to have that same attitude as Jesus, which means that we have to fight for the powerless, not for the powerful, but for the powerless. So I've said it before, if you think that Jesus would be for building walls and caging children, if you think that Jesus would be about denying health care to people, if you think that Jesus would be advocating for policies that benefit the rich but that hurt the poor, you don't know the Beatitudes and you don't know Jesus. Okay? So, if we're going to be followers of the way of Jesus, we have to be bold, and we cannot be afraid of upsetting people. Now, Pope Francis, just a few weeks ago, said this to a group of people in Panama City. A person who thinks only about building walls, wherever they may be, and not building bridges is not a Christian. This is not the gospel. We need to build up a society in light of the Beatitudes, walking towards the kingdom with the least of these. That's what he said. We have to build up a kingdom in light of the Beatitudes, walking with the least of these. Can you imagine if we actually did that? How would that happen? Well, let's look a little bit more deeply into the Beatitudes. In our words of integration this morning, you heard about the Jesus Seminar. And I've told you about the Jesus Seminar before. It was a group of 150 theologians, biblical scholars, some of the greatest in the world, who in the 1970s and 80s got together to find out the truth about Jesus' teachings. Not the long-standing beliefs that were taught by the church, but the actual truth of Jesus' teachings. And what they discovered was that all of the Aramaic Bibles from the 6th century were destroyed by the church. And so what they sought to do was to translate the teachings of Jesus back into the Aramaic, which is the language that Jesus spoke. And what they discovered is that Jesus' teachings take on a whole new meaning, starting with these Beatitudes. So, Most of us growing up in the church, when we were taught the Beatitudes, we were taught, well, you see, what Jesus is saying is, right now if you're poor, or right now if you're sick, or right now if you're hungry, you're blessed because your reward's going to be in heaven. When you die and get to heaven, oh, you're going to be treated like royalty. So it's okay if you're suffering now, because your reward is coming. That's not what Jesus said. It's not what he meant by the Beatitudes. Jesus' teachings were never about the next life. Never. They were always about this life. That's why he said the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's here and now. So what he was saying in the Beatitudes is your reward is now. Hey, poor, hungry, persecuted people, rejoice, because it starts right now. Okay? It's not in the next life. It's now. And then as we also heard, the word blessed in the Bible is a very poor translation. What Jesus was really saying in Aramaic is congratulations. Hey, poor people, congratulations. Sick people, congratulations. Persecuted people, congratulations. Why is he congratulating them? Because he's telling them, today the kingdom starts and you're going to be first. So congratulations. And then after congratulating them, he says to the rich people, woe is you. I've got 4 warnings for you. So he gives 4 congratulations to the poor and the persecuted and 4 warnings to the rich. He said, you might be full now, you may be laughing now, but you're going to be sorrowful and you're going to mourn. Okay. Again, very threatening and dangerous words. So you can see why Jesus was killed. So what do the Beatitudes have to do with us today? Well, I want us to take a moment to think about who we are in the Beatitudes. Who are you in this story? Are you the rich? Do you care more about your own stock portfolio than you do about caring for the poor? Do you care more about your own safety than you do about the safety of the refugees at the border? Do you care more about benefiting your own self than making sure that other people have those same rights and benefits that you get to enjoy? Do you care more about keeping your primary care physician than you care about making sure that everybody gets health care? Or do you resonate in the Beatitudes more with the poor and the hungry and the sorrowful people? And I don't mean literally, I mean spiritually. Maybe you right now are poor in spirit, meaning that you feel so depressed and so dejected and so disheartened right now. Maybe you're hungry. Maybe you're hungry for justice. You're thirsting for justice. Or maybe you're sorrowful. You're just really sorrowful with the state of our nation right now. If you're feeling that way, congratulations. Congratulations, rejoice and be glad, because the kingdom is yours. It doesn't belong to those other people. They're so far removed from the kingdom. You are the kingdom, so rejoice. Okay, congratulations. Congratulations because you're awake. Congratulations because you're paying attention. Or in the words of our friend Pastor John Pavlovitz, who spoke here in November, he called us the damn givers. And he has a shirt with a new beatitude on it, and it says, blessed are the damn givers, the people who give a damn. Okay? Blessed are you. Okay? Okay? Blessed are you. Okay. So, my friends, if we truly are telling people that we're Christian, that we're followers of the way of Jesus, we must be people of the Beatitudes. We must do as Jesus said. And I know it sounds shocking, but what he said is, the powerful and the mighty will be brought brought down from their thrones, and the lowly will be lifted up high. That's how the kingdom will be established. So that's your job. If you're a follower of the way of Jesus, you've got to pull the powerful and mighty from their thrones, and you've got to lift up the lowly. That's your job. Jesus is not coming back. You are the second coming of the Christ. We are the ones we've been waiting for. I would like to conclude by reading to you a modern-day version of the Beatitudes, written by John Pattison. Here's to the weak ones, the outcasts, the broken, the peacemakers, the ragamuffin royalty who will inherit a new world. The ones who see God through open eyes and open hearts. They don't long for power, and they have no respect for status. You can insult them, spread lies about them, disbelieve, vilify, or persecute them. The only thing you can't do is dishearten them. They comfort, they show mercy, they heal. They mourn with those who mourn, and they love. They are filled to overflowing with goodness. And while some may see them as the weak ones, I say they are truly blessed. Namaste.